Tuesday, dragged him at the barn, chucked the bonnet on, which I'm pleased to say, ain't bad actually. You think where the hinges go, so because the screws are holding it back, this bonnet will go back a fair amount. It will go up by an equal amount against the bulkhead. It fits down the sides. Yeah, happy with the bonnet. Anyway, bonnet's on, because this is outside today, and possibly tonight as well, and maybe tomorrow. Brakes day. So what's actually happened with this? Well, it's killed the grass underneath for a start off. Let me show you. So up here, we have got, get my head out of the light, up here, we've got a pair of chassis lines, one to each of the rear wheels, and somewhere up here, can't get your hand underneath, that sort of area there, one of them's burst, which is why all this lot is absolutely covered in brake fluid. Right, so we've got it in the garage. I'll get it jacked up. There are no brakes on it now. Quite alarming. So there must have still been quite a lot of pressure in the system when I drove it back after the warning light came on. But because I've disconnected and there's no pressure side on the circuit, reversed it just now, pressed the brake pedal, and it went down, not particularly far because you've still got front brakes. But of course, when you go back, is get this thing properly up in the air. I've got these ramps from CJ Autos. They are brilliant. They're hydraulic. So you put the ramps flat on the floor. You reverse the car onto them without brakes. You connect up the hydraulic pump, and then just pump, and it goes up. This is the system I use, made by CJ Autos of Haywood. Marvellous stuff. As you can see, the ramps are adjustable. At the moment they've only got kind of one lock-off setting on these, which is, I guess, the only disadvantage of these fellas. Basically, hydraulic ram, that's the lock-off there, so it goes between that bolt there. Locks itself solid. Now let's go and have a look at these brakes. Right, brake lines, they're horrific. They really are. So that bit there is where it went through the clip. As you can see, the wall of the brake line has been significantly reduced. Still not very bendy there though. I think up there somewhere was where it, and I've been going over this trying to find the leak. But basically, the lines come down from the front, run along this little kind of bracket on the bottom of the car, which I'll degrease, go up under the footwell, then they run along the top of this big cross member where the A-frame is bolted onto. There they exit, and then they connect onto the flexi hoses up there. And that's blocked in by the Bose and the axle. But I'll do it. Well, it needs to be done. I need to use the car. So the flexi hoses resorted to a little bit of Uri Geller. The bracket's knackered. It saves me a load of aggravation trying to undo those terminally rusted nuts and so forth. That is the captive nut there that would have held the pipe on. Both of these pipes fractured as soon as I went near them. As you can see, the reservoir is draining itself out in quite a few places. That one over there is terrible. So I need to get this bracket here my finger, there's my finger. That bracket there needs to undo that, and then that will allow me to take the bracket with the two flexes. All of this stuff is for low brake pad warnings and ABSs, so I don't want to disturb any of that. That's obviously brake line that's going to get replaced, because I don't trust any of these brake lines anymore. I've pulled the line through from over the top of the chassis, and to be honest, I'm a little bit ashamed. I'm a little bit ashamed that I've let them get as bad as this. That is, I'm surprised that they weren't picked up on the last MOT. They really are very, very bad. 26 years of steel brake lines. So, enough gabbing on about what has been. What are we going to do about it? These two fellas are the brake lines that come down from the brake modulator, the master cylinder in effect, and run down to those connectors. They both look original. You can see the original green paint on them largely, and where it's in the engine bay, it's largely protected. And then we get to bits that I can't focus on. There are that. So there you can see the paint's failed and it's started to corrode. Not horrendous. That's not beautiful, is it? I'll get those joiners off. But I think apart from that tiny bit there, that pipe could have seen more years. Now it's come off, I'm going to replace the damage. This one on the other hand, this is the other pipe. Again, it's got paint down most of it. This is the one that was largely protected by the inner wing. Focus. Focus, 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 focus. Focus. Look at that. I think it was a good decision to take that off. The wetness around that is just from my gloves and releasing agent, but you can see the nut that secures it is more or less completely dissolved, and if that's dissolving, then I can't imagine the pipe's that far behind it. In fact, if we go a little bit medieval on it, we'll probably find we can just snap that off. There we are, snap. That's how strong that was. So I think that was a wise decision to take those off. I've managed to salvage these joiners, and they're in good order inside. Both of them. I had to get the mole grips on it. You can see, well, if I hold up what it should look like and what it does look like on my cack-handed hands. Yes. You see how that's corroded away. You can also see where I snipped the brake line there. So that damage at the end of it was the straight line. That's where I snipped the brake line. That was even worse. I don't think there was actually much left of that captive nut there, and obviously the pipe would have been held in by the end there, so when the hex head goes off these things, it's not necessarily a complete disaster. So when your MOT tester tells you about rusted ferrules on your brake lines, not so much of a problem on the male ones. On the female ones, completely different matter, because when these things rust badly, and when I get the flexi lines, I'll show you how bad they do rust. Obviously this area rusts and the brake line falls off. So the female ferrules, ends, brake line ends, are a completely different matter. These rust, replace them. Right, okay, I'm going to make up some of these brake lines now. This one I managed to get undone intact, but there's no way can I get that nut to shift without twisting the brake line. This is actually, this is quite a common fault, that sometimes the nut turns and sometimes it don't. And the reason it don't is because it's completely and utterly gummed in there. Focus, 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 focus. And if you try to turn that, all you'd end up doing is just twisting the brake line off it. So just be warned of that. I'm not going to bother going any further with it. It can just go up there. I'm not going to waste any time on it. I'm going to cut new patterns of these two and get them installed. They actually put, cleverly, I was wondering what these white labels were. They put numbers on them. 22 on that one. So 22 on the short one. And then if you go around to the box of tricks that looks like a master cylinder knot, you'll see also 22. So you know exactly where to put it to, and that was 21. 21 and 22. I can see them, I don't know if you can see it. It's quite neat, that. So when I make up a replacement for pipe 22, I know exactly which hole it needs to go back into for now. But yeah, I think that was probably a lucky escape, that one. You can see how thin. You can't see because it's not focusing. Focus. If I go in there like that, that's better. Right, now look at how thin the wall on that pipe has gone. Really was not far off. I mean, we're below a millimetre in the wall thickness on that pipe. And that's, you can see that from the outside. You can see how much corrosion there is. I didn't even touch that then. You can see how much corrosion there is in the outside of this pipe. Right, making new ones. So it's a bit of a kerfuffle. It's taken me getting on for an hour and a half to make these two lines up and feed them in. I had to take the steering shaft out because there's no way was I going to get them in without mullering them, but they've gone in more or less exactly the same way as the old ones came out, onto the same clips. They will do. Right, get the steering shaft back in, then and work on the chassis lines. Bad news is I don't think I've got enough of this hose to do the whole car. So I'm going to concentrate on getting the chassis lines and the back axle done. I've ordered another ton of line, which I will put onto the car tomorrow when it arrives. But yeah, need to measure these two next. I use a bit of string to measure the length. Makes life a lot easier. Saves wrestling with the things too much. Right, so I got the flexes off the back. Bracket, as you see, succumbed to some Uri Geller. Not an awful lot of Uri Geller. I have to make up a new bracket and rivet it onto the floor. This is what I mean about those female ends. You can see how badly corroded that is. And also the end on the flexi. Now, this end, because it's protected on top of the axle, is a lot better. I am quite surprised, because I have never changed these flexes. Never. In the decade I've owned the car. And it was 12, 13 years old when I got it, so the chances are these are going to be original. But there's no sign of perishing. Apart from the rust on the ends. Pretty impressed, I'd say. Right, so all I need to do on this is release this end. I need to get the retrieve the brass T-piece, because that needs to go back on top of the diff. The rest of it, scrap. These are the new fellas that are going to go on. Nice, eh? Let's check they're the same length, actually. It goes that way round. No, it doesn't. It goes that way round. Yeah, more or less the same length, aren't they? It will do. Right, put these together. So, with not a huge amount of effort, I've got the flexes in. I've got the salvaged twinway in place, and I've made a bracket out of a piece of aluminium. And now I'm just going to check that this end piece is going to fit on here, and I'm going to flare it onto a bit of pipe, and then I'm going to run that piece of pipe up and around to see if I can get it to locate onto this. Yes, it does fit. Just checking it's not. No, it's a nice tight fit. The reason I do that is because there's actually a fairly close difference between M10 and the Imperial brake fixings, but if I try and put an Imperial fixing into a metric thread, it just becomes a little bit wobbly. Right, it's taken all flipping day, and it is currently 20 to 5 BST, and I've done the chassis lines. So, what's it taking me all bloody day long to do? Well, fit those two, which continues all the way along here, up there, over the top, new flexes, onto the brass union on top of the diff there. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the 2 lines that go down to the back wheels. I'll get that done today, and then I'm going to run out of pipe, I think, because that's pretty much all I've got left. Be enough to do the back axle. I've ordered a load which is coming tomorrow. I can get the front done. This is the brake line that runs from the diff across to the near side rear wheel. Now this is the one the MOT tester was haranguing me about being rusty a couple of years ago, and then it's not seen an advisory since. And while I had to cut the ends off because the fixings are seized in the caliper and I want to deal with that when the wheel comes off, it's actually not too bad. I've seen a lot worse. Making a bloody great mess all over my bench. Yeah, I've seen a lot worse, but I mean, in theory, that one could have stayed on the car. But it's pointless while I've got the whole hydraulic system apart. So that one's probably would have been all right, but like I say, it's futile to have left it on the car. What I wanted to do, I'll show you these bastard things. So these are the original hoses, pipes, and you could kind of, as you start to bend them, you can feel the rust just exploding all over them. They're not pretty. So that one, you see, I managed to bend that there without puncturing it, but I reckon if I bent it back it would just snap off. This is the bit where it had failed, and you can see just there's no way it's going to bend. There's no thickness at all to it. And likewise here, no thickness, no thickness, and then it starts to get strong again. So these chunks that were really, really bad are the bits that go up and over the back axle. And similarly with the other one, just, yeah, it just snaps. Snappity snap and snappity snap. Look at the strength of this band. And now you see, bend. So that bit was serviceable. But quite scary really, isn't it? That it can get to such a critically nasty state. Well, let me listen anyway. Nothing actually happened as a result of this. What happened was I stamped on the brakes and it burst a pipe. But that lot's all going straight in the metal recycle. Onwards and upwards. Thought I'd take the back bumper off though, because it was wiggling around on the passenger side. When I took it off, oh, the fuck is all that? That is miserable, isn't it? Should be a bracket that goes from there to there, like that one. Wow, that one's just as rusty, really, isn't it? Yeah, so I think that's a goner, that bumper. I need to retrieve the end caps off it. I've got a load at home, but I'll have these ones, thank you very much. And I also need to get this rubber trim off the top, which is secured by this plate. That's going to be a laugh, isn't it? That is going to be a laugh. Yes. Might have to be a flat piece of steel that goes back on. We'll see. Right, let's get these end caps off. One of them, bolt came out intact, although the bracket's a bit crappy. The other one, the bolt came out most of the way and then snapped off, so I'm going to get the bracket off and I'll give you a bit of TFR on this. It'll come up like new. And then get the bracket off, and then I'm going to wind the thread back into it, because that's obviously the way that it was working. I've then also got this off, which I'm not sure is going to be any use at all, but it's a fairly resilient piece of steel. Unfortunately, all of the bolts have snapped off, every single one of them. But the rubber has come off as well. So again, a bit of TFR on that, it'll look like new. This, only going to one place, still weighs a fair bit. It's going out to the scrap pile. Oh, shit. Maybe I can go here. One very knackered bumper. Right, let's get those quarter bumpers tidied up now. And then I'm going to drop this thing down onto axle stands and get the wheels off. Driver's side caliper, no problem at all. Put the pipe on, your bleed nipple, secured the brake line to the back axle, tyre wraps. It's the preferred way of old Land Rovers. Driver's side rear caliper, yeah, there it is. I started looking at it and I just, there's no way is that coming out without a struggle. So I'm going to, it's going to need some heat, I think. So I just took the caliper off, and even these bolts were, I don't seem to recall it being that long ago that I did the discs on the back of this thing, but these bolts were fiendishly tight. Rusted in. I wonder if they're just too long. You can see the end of that one's rusted. It's obviously going through the back of the housing. It came out, it resorted to extreme violence. The thread in there is still good. Most of this, where it's gone on the top there, is where I had the Stilsons on it. Basically by welding a massive nut on the end of it and putting so much heat into it that it was glowing the nut red, but this was still quite cool. I was spraying water on this and it wasn't fizzing up too much. Then it started to turn. Then of course the nut fell off, but I realised that this nice little hacksaw mark here, grinder mark here, was now at the oblique. So that's what it looks like. So unfortunately I ground up the end of the brake line, the steel brake line, but most of the crap was in there. Now I've given it a proper good blow through from this end. Really I need to take the piston out and see what the sort of state of the seals and stuff is in there, and then judge whether I get a new seal kit or a new caliper. So that's the next thing. But at least I got the bloody thing out. Right. So when I'm getting pistons out of brake calipers, first of all, it makes sense to mount it firmly. Why is my gimbal wobbling? Stop wobbling, gimbal. Nothing to do with the gimbal. I'll show you what it is in a minute. Right, so what I've done is I've put a bleed nipple back in, and I've put a ferrule in there just so I can push the air gun against it. Okay, so you push the air gun against the little ferrule, and the idea is then it will push the pistons out. So one piston I've locked in, really just by holding it with the G-clamp. The other one, I really don't want to fly across the garage, so I am going to just adjust that, and bleed nipple's not done up. I know that because I just got covered in brake fluid. And now, right, so let's do the bleed nipple up. 7/16, which is here. Let's do bleed nipple up. It doesn't matter which one goes where. It's the way I've done it here. Right, let's try again now. Oops, G-clamp's come off. Right, and the clamp is starting to move out, you see? Right, so it's moved out as far as it can. We'll move it a little bit further. This piston's very rusty. Right, I don't want to take the thing right out because I want to get the other one to move now. Because otherwise, because when they're like this, you can pull them out with a Stilson or something. Just lever them out, drill a hole in them. When they're this rusty, and I'll show you in a second, these pistons are fucked. But they are both moving. Right, now we've got both out a sufficient distance. What I'll probably do now, I think, is actually we'll take. Should we have a race, see which one comes out first? Oh, the joy of it. I love my job. Right, I'm just going to put this one right on the edge, just so, because the other one's not gone out quite as far. Now, keep your fingers out of this at this point. what it might be worth doing is just shielding my face with a glove. That's the noise they make when they pop out. Right, so here we have one piston. That's quite a lot of gank and crap on the back of that. A lot of dirty brake fluid. Now if you look at this piston, it's got rust and spots all round the edge there. So I think my question's been answered. Actually, they're rubbing off. No, it's just dirty brake fluid. It certainly has got... Is that rust? No. I'll take it back about that one. That one might not be too bad. This one, on the other hand, I think it's going to be a bit fucked. Because I can see the rust on the edge of it. Right, now, what I need to do now is pull this one out. So, air's no good anymore because the other half of the caliper is now... So, all I'm going to do is try and walk it out, because I know this piston's fucked anyway. And just gripping on the edge of it. Obviously, if it was a piston I was going to be reusing, and I'm not, then I would be a lot more gentle with it. Oh, come on, you bastard. Right, let's put the other piston back in a second, because this one is not quite as free moving as I thought it was. Right, so just tucked that one just onto the seal. So it's on the seal. Oh, now I'm going to go again and see if I can get the other one out. Fail. That's when fail ship failed into fail harbour, capsized, sank, and then recovery also failed. What I probably need here... I mean, it's pointless the other piston being used anyway, because if I'm going to rebuild the piston, then I'll rebuild the bloody pistons. It's pointless just putting one in. I'm just going to leave this in just a tiny bit further, because this one's quite easy to move. Right, it's definitely gone in this time. Just hold it on the edge there. And again. There we go. Right, the other one's out now. Right. This could be amusing. So the problem we've got now is that the two pistons are wedged together. Such is the joy of life. Right, I can push it back in a tiny bit. That's okay. Let me just see if I can wiggle him out. There he goes. Whee! He's alive. And then the other one can come out as well. This one should come out fairly easily. It does. Right, so that's the both pistons out. Now, inside the caliper here we've got... Well, the good news is there's no... Oh, there is swarf in there, so it's a good job I took it apart. It's a fucking great lump of swarf. Where's it gone to? It's there. Look at that. Nice big shiny lump of swarf. So it's a good job I did take it apart. You really wouldn't want swarf kicking around inside your braking system. Right, now what we're going to do with these. So this one is commonly referred to as a knackered piston. Yeah, utterly useless. Utterly useless. This one would be serviceable, but I'm going to go and get a pair of new pistons. There's a big rusty lump on the end there. The problem is when you push everything in, when everything goes right inside the caliper, it's those little lumps that cause all the bloody grief. They tear the seals, and then you... I haven't done a seal noise until then. They tear the seals, and then obviously that's when you start getting problems with the brakes. Now this caliper wasn't leaking, but while I'm rebuilding the braking circuit here, it would make sense to get another pair of pistons. Sorry, he could up it. It's pistons for this fella. Now, the other thing you need to do with this is get the seals out. So let me go get a screwdriver. That one will do. Now, on the outside here, we've got like a dust seal. Let me get this fella out first of all. So I'm putting it on the rubber part. Here it comes. And this seal comprises of two parts. There's a metal outer ring and there's a rubber seal inside it. In fact, the rubber's so hard that it won't do anything. But like I say, this seal wasn't actually leaking. Now, further inside the caliper, I'm going to need to get a smaller screwdriver for this one. Let's do the other side. I'll put it on the rubber seal, on the, the dust seal. Dust seal does exactly what it says on the tin. It's to prevent dust and crap getting into the caliper. So there we are, there's the other one. You can see it's quite rusty anyway. The metal part of it rusts away. It's what happens. Now, the other thing I need to do then is get the seal out of... Right, here we go. So I just normally use one of these little jeweler's screwdrivers. They're quite effective at getting in there. Now I'm going from the outside of the bore. So I'm going from the dust seal side, and I leave it under the seal and flick it up. And this one's still quite flexible. There's the seal. So that's the inner seal. Right, so inside here, what we've basically got, let me, either side of this one will do, that'll do. I can work in there. So what we've basically got, jeweler's screwdriver, been taken up. That screwdriver will do. Right, okay, so that is the lip where the dust seal sits. That's the lip where the piston seal sits. And then this is the bore that the piston slides up and down in. Now, first and foremost, you can see there's a lot of crap at the bottom of that. There's no particular rust. There's lots of staining from manky old brake fluid. But there's also a huge amount of, looking around the caliper, a lot of external corrosion on it. Put my phone case up there. And on this side, it wasn't any pretty. This is the one that's got all the swarf in it. So you can see all the specks there at the bottom of the chamber. All those specks down there, little lumps of metal, which I really don't want in there. The little lumps of metal are bits of brake pipe from when I drilled. You can see even more there. Look. You can see the wear marks on the side of the bores. I've seen an awful lot worse than this, but I think it's just going to be, rather than refurbing this now, this needs to come apart. It needs to be grip blasted, and it needs to be powder coated and make it look pretty again. I can't see a huge amount because I'm going to have to wait for pistons to come tomorrow anyway. I might as well wait for a new bloody caliper to come. The one on the other side was fine, but that is as bad as a piston gets. And bear in mind that when they're fully retracted, this thing's gone to autofocus again. Sorry, come off autofocus. When these things are fully retracted, the dust seal sits right at the very, very top, and the piston seal sits down there. So any abrasions on here, and again more swarf there, any abrasions on here whatsoever are going to tear at that seal and reduce its efficiency. So that one, scrap bin. This one's better, same caliper. This one, interestingly, is from the outboard edge. So this is the one that would be hidden, protected, I guess, right inside the wheel rim. The whole caliper should be fairly shielded. It's almost as if someone has replaced one piston in this caliper and not both. Let's see if the markings on the bottom are the same. Nope. So two pistons, one caliper, one's ruined and one's not. Now it's quite possible that the dust seal failed because of the corrosion, and then it just got worse and 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 worse. Nice smell of burning brake fluid in here. Yes, it's not a pleasant smell, brake fluid burning. Change of plan. I'm going to recondition this unit. I appreciate that there are dirt cheap calipers out there, and they're probably type approved, but I'm a little bit anxious about mixing up brake calipers, even though it's on the back axle on a 2-ton plus car. So I've ordered the correct pistons and seals for this Lockheed piston, and I'm going to fit those tomorrow. In the meantime, I've been cleaning it up, and yes, this is the same caliper. So a little bit of wire brush action, a little bit of just chipping away lumps of rust that have formed on the surface, and you can see that the body is still in fairly good shape. There's areas where it's pitted, but not critical areas. I'm next going to clean out these pistons, blow through all of the ways, refit the old pistons back to front, and then I'm going to give it a quick lick of it's the only stuff I've got, black paint, and then that'll be ready for me to fit the pistons in tomorrow, fit onto the back of the car, and get on with it. It's gone midday. I've got to get the front brakes done. Yay, front driver's side. Right, what have we got here? Obviously there's two circuits. You've got the pressure circuit and you've got the brake circuit. That's the pressure circuit. I know because I've routed the pipe back, and that is going to get replaced. Might as well do the thing. The pipe's only about 1.5 feet long. This one is the normal pipe, and it routes right the way around the back of the bloody master. What a pain in the balls. So I'm going to actually join that pipe. I'm going to join it up in the engine bay, and put a new ending on it. So one's going to be a piece of cake, the other one's not. Then of course I've got the two pipes that run from the fixing point on top of the swivel. So that's where the flexi hose mounts to. And then you've got two fixed pipes down there which run down to the bottom of the caliper. And I think really, that's been warm, isn't it? Why has that been so bloody warm? It's a worry, isn't it? This looks good. Caliper's coming off. I got distracted then for a second, and I will work on the caliper on the bench. As you see, the front caliper's nowhere near as bad as that back caliper. It's largely in good shape. I'm hoping that the pistons don't need all replacing. Otherwise, I'll have to order another piston kit. I've got recon calipers, rebuilt calipers at home, which is somewhat irritating that they're at home and not here. So I'm going to start really by snipping these two flexes, cut the cable ties, remove the caliper, complete with the bracket, see if I can make up these two new fixed hoses. This gubbins behind here, one of those is for the ABS sensor and one's for the low brake warning sensor, which you can see is fitted. Not. Those pads are a bit on the low side as well, so I'll replace those pads. Yeah, getting on with it. So driver's side front caliper's off. It's quite a big thing, isn't it? I had to use Rory in the end, Rory Breaker. I named some of my tools. So I've got basil brush. I've got in here, if we can find him, my deburr tool. Ah, his name's rubbed off. Chris. That's Chris Deburr. I'm a little bit nuts. I like this. Right, okay, so caliper's off. Yeah, it's in fair shape. The pads are in need of imminent replacement, but I got a spare set. That's good news. I can do that while I'm at it. Not difficult. The bulk of the crap on here is just dust. So the caliper's in fairly good order. Except for dust seals are all pissing hanging out. So I got to reseal this caliper as well. Darn it all! Right, okay, I'm going to get these pipes off first, I think, because these are going to need to be rebuilt. And the main reason for that is, at this top end there, I'm not happy with that. I might as well remake them. I've got all the bits here to remake them. These ones, interestingly, they're steel pipes, but then they've almost put like a shrink wrap over them on the corners. But only on these top corners, where they're exposed above the wheel. Weird, huh? Driver's caliper is all apart, cleaned up, looking good. All of the unions undid, all of the nipples undid. It's not looking too bad. It's just drying off after a bit of a degunk. Interestingly, the backs might be Lockheed, the fronts are AF. The back has responded quite nicely to some high temperature paint, which I'll probably do with this one as well. Pistons on this thing though, they're a flipping disaster. How about that? Yeah, I think these were long overdue for a rebuild. That would appear to be the best one. This one, the dust seal is actually seized on it. Well, it was seized on it. It's been in for a wash, so it's loosened it up. But I think a couple of these, I really struggled to get the dust seal off. The piston started to retract, or come out, sorry. And then the dust seal seized on it, and it wasn't going to go any further. So I've ordered a front axle rebuild set now as well. They'll be coming tomorrow, hopefully. Got the caliper line, so this is from the flexi to the mounting, which I've managed to retrieve. I'm just going to give that a quick dry off in a second, and it's going to get some rust treatment and paint. These are the pipes I need to make up. These are the new flexis. Oof. Yes. They're actually held in place by these little clips, spring clips. I did buy some more, because unbelievably, that's a bad omen, isn't it? Unbelievably, they don't come with the calipers. So with the kit. So this is the kit. Very nice. It will fly. It will. It's going to go. It's going to go. They've got new sponsors. So yeah, these are the jobbies that came. No clips with them, and I think that's a pretty poor show, if I'm honest, Mr. Goodridge. For the sake of a few pennies, you could have lobbed in new clips instead of making me buy them from Beermet. So front passenger side, I think on the face of it, that's broken off. So the bracket's hanging off, but it's not come right off. I'll need to fix that. I can do that fairly easily. The actual pipes though, look in reasonable order, as do those, but I bet they don't respond well to Mr. Wire Brush. Let's have a look. Oh, I've seen a lot worse on this car, you know. I've seen an awful lot worse. I suspect they won't undo though, and that's the big problem. Right, let's cut the flexes, get the caliper off, because that's going to get rebuilt as well. And yes, the front pads are almost gone on that side. Almost gone. So get the caliper off and cut these hoses. It's easy enough. Mr. Hacksaw. Where's Mr. Hacksaw gone? Well, the caliper came off easily enough, but you can see it's got similar challenges on all of the pistons. They all need replacing. So I gave it a good clean first of all, rather than battling with the grease and the crap that was on the other one. You can see also the dust seal has been torn out here, and that is seized on, it's rusted onto the piston. So yeah, because I ordered the rebuild kit for the pair of them. The bracket that secures the rigid lines to the flexes that attaches to the front inner wing, in this case doesn't. What a tragic case. Anyway, I'm going to make up a new bracket. It's going to get new inner wings later on this year anyway, so I should make up an aluminium bracket just to secure these flexes. Right, okay. This is the non-power line that goes right across the bulkhead and down and out through to this union here. Goes like that. Okay. I've just decided I've replaced so many lines on this car now. It just seemed futile to try and splice this thing. Just losing the plot. I have found that a lot of that rust along the top of the bulkhead there is burst through where the seam sealer was, so I need to investigate and get rid of all that crap. In the meantime, I'm going to make up a new one of these, and then that can go on. It's not a huge amount. What was it, about 6-7 foot of pipe? About 8 foot of pipe, I reckon. And then the other one is here. I was pissing around and I ended up cutting it into 2 chunks, thinking I was going to splice it, and I just thought, it's a bodge. And I don't, well, I do bodge, but I don't bodge. I certainly don't bodge when it comes to brakes. So I decided to replace both lines complete. Both the calipers now have their lines in place. I've degreased and treated, rust treated, both the brackets that sit on top of the front hub. They're going to get painted in a minute. And tomorrow's the big assembly day. So I'm going to get this line in and its brother. So these two lines will then be in the car and ready to attach calipers and so forth. Just 3 calipers to put in tomorrow. Day 3 on the minor brake rebuild. I'm trying to think what I was going to say there for a second. I was just thinking about Morris Minors. Anyway, it's day 3, so we've got the second near side line in across the top of the bulkhead there. Very pleased with that. All nice shiny new conifer pipes to the front of the master cylinder. I've fitted up a manufactured bracket to hold the rigid and the flexes. Just need to tie wrap that ABS sensor cable, tie wrap that to the bracket as well. That big fat pipe there, that's the LPG pipe. So I've just checked that over as well, but that was copper or conifer when it went in, so all the fixings for that are good. These flexes are all on. Naturally, I'm being really careful not to get any crap in the end, so they've still got their end caps on. Let's be sensible about this, eh? Near side, sorry, driver's side, off side. Again, done the same thing, so I've attached the flexes. All the pipes are now fitted, and I've just had a delivery. Dun dun dun. Right, let's see what. Let's have a look. There's a bit of noise in the background with Nick the farmer. He's doing something with his tractor. I don't know what he's fucking doing. Right, we've got some Watsits. These are Watsits that don't make your fingers go green or orange or whatever colour Watsits are. Seal kits, pair of pistons, another seal kit, 4 pistons, and another pair of pistons, and another seal kit. So basically what we've got here, let's take all these bits in here. What we have got is, these are going to be pistons for the rear caliper, and these 4 will be pistons for the 2 front calipers. There's 4 pistons in each. These 2 bags, I am going to guess, are the one bag is for the this kit. And I put oil by a second bag. I've left all my big red stuff at home. But these metal rings are a bastard to put in. I know how to do it, but occasionally you get one that flounders. I'm not having a world of fun with this caliper. I got those 2 in, and I got that one in. This one here is known for being a ball's ache to put in, because when you squeeze, you've got all this shit in the way. And I have been through 6 of these so far on this one, and that's now rubbish. I can't do anything with that because it's gone in not level. So it needs to happen. It's going to have to happen. There is no choice. It works. There's a bloody mouse in there. I just saw it move. So what I've done is I have made myself a little platform here for the G-clamp to work against, so I can adjust this and get a nice level platform to work from in order to pull that seal in. It might work, it might not. It's a useful tip, I guess. I mean, all I've done there is it's a captive plate, and I've just put a bolt with a load of washers on it. Probably didn't even need the washers, just needed the bolt really. But it is more or less level. I'll just double check the distance between the face and the back using my vernier, and adjust it as is appropriate, and then try one more time. And then this is the last caliper. This caliper goes in, and I can start bleeding the brakes. The bleeding brakes. So I can go in on there. Other side's done. That worked a treat. There he goes. Look at that. He's in. Right, putting this caliper on now. So it's all together. Pads are all in. Everything's sorted out. Got the easy bleed sorted out. That's all plumbed in. Put my last 1.5 litres of fluid into the cylinder and it pissed straight out of there. I thought, oh, that's odd. I could have sworn I'd been round and done all the pipes and everything up. Now what's happened is, even under just the pressure, the 30 psi pressure of the tyre, it had blown one of the fixings out. Now, luckily this is the only one of these I've used. But if you look at the thread on that, it's threaded up to about there. The thread from that to the end, it's gone. Bastard. So, I had to make it. That's the old pipe. I had to kind of fashion something up. Anyway, so I made a new pipe up. New pipe's gone on. Things that challengers say. So it was this pipe down here that had gone wonky. That pipe there. Sorry, you can't see it. That pipe there that went onto the back down at the bottom there. So now, having sorted that out, joy of 1,000 joys, I'm going to follow through the brake bleeding process, or the bleeding brake process, which I've kind of put into this handy sheet here. But basically what you need to do is, it can only be done with easy bleed. You've got to pressurise the system, and it's a case of going around the circuit. It's a bit more complicated than if you didn't have power or ABS brakes, but it's fairly straightforward. I'm not going to demonstrate it. The manual describes it really straightforward, and I've just put it down into a Word document and then printed it off, so I haven't got all the pictures, which I don't need. So time to bleed the brakes, I think. We was having a celebratory can of beer. Quite nice, this stuff, very sweet. I know one of my boys like it. So yeah, just did all the normal, followed the standard bleeding process, and it's working beautifully. I'm just going to topped up the reservoir, so it's got the correct level in there. I'll check it tomorrow, but other than that, we is done clearing up. Has had enough. I think once you know that this thing's working, that needs replacing, the accumulator needs replacing because the hydrogen's all gone. So I need to replace the accumulator. I knew it was gone anyway because the pump kicks in every second time you press the brake pedal. It kicks in for about 5 seconds. So the accumulator's not running the pressure efficiently. Radio's on, just a second. Oh! And Buddy approves. So tomorrow, providing there's no leaks, and there shouldn't be, because if there were any leaks, there'd be leaks right now. It'd be pissing out, because it's under full pressure now. That's worked. That's been a success. Yes, I think so anyway.